The flying flashpoint in US-China relations flies no more.
It's hit. It's going down.
Beijing's suspected spy mission ending in anything but secrecy.
That's my Air Force right there, buddy.
Locals watched on.
That was for America.
It was only like $60 billion.
It wasn't no like big fireball and flames or nothing like that. And then all of a sudden you seen the balloon just go, and the top of it was just like confetti.
And cable TV broadcast live.
We have a live shot now of this balloon going down.
The high-altitude balloon, the size of 3 buses, had made it west to east all the way across North America.
So it's scary. I mean, it's a different way of spying on us.
But the closer it got to the Atlantic, the clearer it became. Washington was not going to allow it to leave. Local air traffic grounded and vessels off South Carolina told to move. At 2:39 p.m. local time, a single heat-seeking air-to-air missile from an F-22 fighter ended the curious disputed flight.
You couldn't like just shoot it.
The balloon is gone.
Whoa.
They successfully took it down, and I want to compliment our aviators who did it.
President Biden says he issued the shoot-it-down order 3 days ago, but left timing to his military chiefs. They waited until their target was over the water. China has called the American strike an overreaction and warns it reserves the right to make further responses if necessary. This stoush cruelling plans for the two superpowers to improve their chilly relations.
Just at a moment when Australia is trying to rebuild some ties in a constructive way with Beijing.
Well, hello there, and welcome to News from the Pew, the only Catholic show on YouTube that doesn't delist its episodes and doesn't get kicked off because we actually know what we're doing. I am your humble host, Rick Barrett, and I'm joined by my wonderful panel, Mr. Stephen Cunningham from Sensus Fideum and Spiritus TV, Mr. Fawaz Yazi of his YouTube channel, Enoch, and you got to check it out. He had another great interview earlier this week with the religious hippie. Definitely go check that out. It was a wonderful one. By the way, I'm not lowest anymore. I checked that earlier this week. Unfortunately, somebody took that title from me. I'm a little upset about it. Hopefully, I can rectify that and get back down to the bottom of his view count. And then, of course, we are joined by Mr. Jonathan Arrington. We appreciate him dangerously driving and streaming, and it'll be fine. So just thank you so much, John, for doing that. And Anthony, your threats are about as we take them as seriously as a Chinese spy balloon. So don't you worry about that, buddy. It's speaking of which, the long drama of this Chinese spy balloon has finally ended with our aviators spending $1 gazillion to shoot a missile at it and finally get it out of the way. And it looks like I think Steve has a bit of the wreckage from South that he actually went out and got it and came back in there. So that's fantastic.
This is a local miniature version of it.
Is it to scale, buddy? Is it to scale? So it's one of those things that we'll take a look at. But just real quick thoughts on the whole nonsense of the ordeal. We'll just go John, Enoch, and then Steve. John, just your thoughts on the whole media circus of it, the fact that it was able to exist and now it got shot down and America just had another excuse to blow something up.
Well, my take on it may be a little unorthodox, but it's that I think it was a brilliant move on the part of the Chinese as far as saying, hey, America wants to start a war now over a balloon, a flipping balloon. You know, like, who starts a war over a balloon? Come on, just calm down, America. Now, I mean, I don't think anybody in the right mind would believe that it's simply a balloon. But as far as their method of trying to poke, well, the teddy bear who is Joe Biden compared to, I know that's apparently a term of not so much endearment to Xi Jinping, but more of insult. But, as far as their reverse poking of the teddy bear that is Joe Biden, I think it was a smart move on their part. And it's, as a bunch of talking heads have already said, I thought it was an incredible show of cowardice. I mean, even to somehow let it be exposed, I'm sure that the government could have shut down the passing of that information along if they had really wanted to. So I guess the only thing I'm still wondering about, and I'm begging for clarity from more intelligent and perceptive minds, is why did the government let this get out there and even address it at all or talk about it at all? Because I'm sure they could have shut it down if they wanted to, the way they shut down other unflattering notices about the government handling of things in the past. I'm wondering why it was even talked about at all. So I have more questions than answers, but I think it was an interesting play by China.
That's a very good point there, John. What do you think about what John said, Fawaz, the fact that the U.S. is very good at suppressing things, especially if we don't want to see them? Yet, is this just another way to kind of build the case against Biden being a bumbling idiot?
As far as China goes, maybe. I think this was actually a gift to the Biden administration and to the U.S., to be honest with you. I mean, what do you do when there's a bunch of kids looking at a certain things that you don't want them to pay attention to? You bring out a balloon. Here's a nice, shiny red balloon to feast your eyes on, kids. And don't look over here. Look over here. And we had the classified stuff that had come out that week. You had the whole Project Veritas with the whole Pfizer thing, with the gain of function that they wanted to do. You had the whole the Twitter files on Fauci, I think, came out. So all the stuff was coming out against the regime, and then guess what? There's a nice shiny big balloon flying over Montana that probably came from Canada, and the Chinese are involved. So let's have a sit over there and talk about it 24/7 until we pop it. That's honestly what I think happened. In all reality, I think it was a distraction. But if the Chinese wanted to test the waters, kind of get their feet wet a little bit, I don't necessarily think the Chinese really want to go to war with the U.S. I think the U.S. could pretty much end China without firing a single shot, and they could do that with sanctions. Everything that passes through the world goes to the U.S. Navy, which is the largest in the world and largest by far. So in reality, it'll take 6 months, and then China would be no more. You could probably get rid of, unfortunately, about 500,000 of those folks within a year due to starvation. So China has a huge issue, coming along in the next few years because of their one-child policy. Really came back to bit them in the behind. The only problem is the people who are running this country, unfortunately, like China, because they make a lot of the money through that. So, but if we had real men and politicians who knew what they were doing, you could end China's world dominance without firing a single shot if you were smart enough. So I just think it was a distraction, in my personal opinion.
Very good. Let's go live to South Carolina, where we have the actual remnants of said balloon. And we want to thank Steve Cunningham once again for actually getting in the water and swimming on out there and grabbing as much as he could. Of course, he let us know it's just a hefty bag because it's made in China anyway. So it was actually just put in the balloon and sent over. But Steve, besides that, your thoughts?
The ghost of Myrtle Beach came and took down a balloon with $1 million rocket. You know how balloons work. If you pop it, it explodes. Talk about a gender reveal up in the sky. They shot a missile at this thing. And then they go out and tell everybody, oh, yeah, this thing was carrying a payload of weapons and things like that. Yeah, you remember when they put Osama bin Laden in a bag from way back in the back, and they said, oh, yeah, we just threw his body off the thing. We're not going to show you the body. We're not going to show you if he's dead or not. Just believe us because we are the media, we are the military, we are the big state, and just believe us. Stop thinking. Don't even attempt to think. That was from China. They were surveilling, even though China has more satellites than the law allows into space. I'll just let this play real quick.
The balloon. The Chinese have 300 satellites circling the globe. A third of those have military capability, and several of them constitute China's global positioning system that guides all the missiles and rockets and munitions that they have to their targets. Every day, the Chinese satellite constellation monitors where every surface warfare ship in the United States Navy is located. That location information can be rapidly transformed into targeting data. They have plenty of satellites that will read the names on gravestones in Arlington.
And also, they've been also saying that
to go back to the balloon. Does the Pentagon know with certainty now that the balloon actually came from China?
The balloon
It was launched from China, and if so, where?
This goes on for 9 minutes, but he goes on to say that it's been around for 4 years. They've had this. So all of a sudden, now we just finally see one of these things. Which is good that somebody actually looked up for a change instead of looking down in their dumb phone.
It was probably because they got something shiny on their phone. They had to look up and see what it was the actual sun.
Yeah, it was like when they had the eclipse a couple years ago. I thought, hey, it's the first time in a while people are doing this. 3 days prior, let's not forget this happened. The U.S. surrounds China with war machinery while freaking out about balloons, as Caitlin Johnstone wrote. Nobody, find me anybody in media that talked about this. You won't unless it's from alternative sites, alternative media. We put 4 bases up around there.
How dare China get in the way of our bases?
You know how bad that is. I don't know who's their real estate guy, but they need to fire them. It's kind of like Iran putting their country so close to our bases. It's unreal. But yeah, we just completed an arc, as they said, around this. Nobody cares about that. But we keep hearing, you see everyone all about this balloon that was freaking out. Again, as the general said, they have all these satellites that can read anything. And on top of that, don't forget, CIA chief will spy on you through your dishwasher. This was from 2020.
I'm sorry, I like how the picture is in playing Wii golf.
Yeah. I mean, how many people have talked around there and they all of a sudden get junk mail about what they talked about? Or like I talk about driving Uber and I said I got a guy in the back. We got Pandora on. Hey, where are you headed? He goes, Chicago. Sure as anything, 30 seconds later, Chicago plays on Pandora. We looked at each other like Skynet's listening. Yeah. We're being spied on everything in the world. And everyone's worried, oh, look at China. They're getting our intel from that balloon.
Yeah.
U.S. military to test high-flying surveillance balloons to use radar and video to track people's movements and report claims. This is from 2019. And wow.
So are you telling us that wasn't even a Chinese balloon, but that was an American balloon?
You know, I would, if for them when they say that's Chinese balloon, I call BS. Why? Because if it was, let's pretend it was, and that's what's going on, then they shoot it out of the sky. Okay, anybody's going to say that's military thing, they're going to shoot it. But if it's a U.S. one and they go, oh guys, it's Chinese, it's not ours. They're not going to say that. But if it was theirs, what are they going to do? They're going to admit, yeah, that was us.
It's just easy to blame the Chinese.
Yeah,
it's all it is. Just the China and the Chinese who are floating the balloons.
How many people were upset about this? They were apparently, between now and September, balloons will hover 65,000 feet over the states of South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Missouri, and Illinois. They talk about being able to detect cars in 25-mile radius. Nobody cared. China tops U.S. and defense-related satellites orbited in 2022, says report. It's from Cambridge, Massachusetts. My best one of this is with this Matt Taib's talk about government by panic. And that's what we have right now. It's government by panic. Everything's a panic mode. Everything's the worst thing in the history of the world. We all got to freak out about anything. If someone gets a toenail, it's the worst toenail in the history of the world. It'll probably be infected. We need to amputate. It's just unreal what's going on. It's emotion over reason. Is the one book but what's his face that we talked about before, After Virtue, McAllister wrote, we've all lost our ever living minds. And when I saw everyone on Twitter talking about this, I'm going, what are you guys doing? It's almost like somebody was told, you guys got to talk about this. And everyone and their brother was like, shoot it down, shoot it down, shoot it down. Like on the video that we played on the opening, you had that guy from the 1st the Redneck Battalion in South Carolina, the Air Force Battalion Division. All they had to do was set up somebody in a Cessna and shoot it with a shotgun. Where's the guy didn't get a shotgun clip? That's all you need. You didn't need $1 million rocket.
Nope. And the crazy thing is that guy's an ace now. That's that we found out the plot for Top Gun 3, by the way.
Where's Snoopy? He's fighting the Red Baron right there with that.
Excuse me, it's the white Baron because it's a white balloon.
That's right. That's racist to say Red Baron. I forgot. I'm insensitive to the Indian speaking people. Maybe the Chinese got mad at me saying ding dong the other day. I don't know.
They're gonna have a balloon over your house.
Well, they came over this way. All my neighbors
so that was the whole point. They were just coming after you, buddy. They're just coming after you.
They don't need a balloon on Steve's house.
I'm seeing Rock Hill, South Carolina, Mooresville, North Carolina, everywhere around. People were up there. Hey, I got the balloon photo. And everyone's trying to be someone with a photo.
No, you seen those TikTok dancing he's been doing? They already have all this information.
I'm just going to launch this one out and see what happens.
Don't worry, that F-22 can't wait. He's still flying around. He's got the permission to shoot balloons. He's going to be taking out kids' balloons now for the rest of his life. There's
a great redneck video about this out there. I put it at the end of Clown Planet where the guys just go back. Hey, this is the most excitement. This is the most excitement in a while. It came at the wrong time because it would have been a fish fry if it came there in the spring, and it's no fish fry. Maybe I could throw this PBR at it. Yeah, nah, I better drink it.
Yeah, exactly. Hey man, don't make me have PBRs. That's it. There's nothing better than a cold PBR embrace day. All right, we're just babbling. Moving on. Something else. Speaking of babbling, that's what we call a correct transition. The State of the Union took place on Tuesday night, and it featured a doddering old man yelling at a bunch of people. And it was the first time that Joe had actually been out past 6 o'clock yelling at a bunch of people in a while. So he didn't know if he was actually at dinner or the State of the Union. So it was a pretty boring State of the Union, but we do have some highlights. So let's take a look.
But the trained seals in the crowd loved it. They clapped consistent with their species. Actually, sorry, that is unfair to seals. There's not a seal in the ocean, or even at SeaWorld, who would wear an I Love Abortion pin. That is too low even for marine mammals. They may eat live fish, but they're not ghouls. Congressional Democrats, by contrast, are ghouls. Take a look at this pin, which has replaced the American flag on their lapels. Notice that the O in abortion is in the shape of a heart. They literally love abortion. Now, let's set aside the politics and ask an honest question. Who loves abortion? Honestly, who loves abortion? Maybe you think abortion should be legal, but do you love abortion? Do you think abortion is a wonderful, affirming act you feel so proud of? You brag about it with jewelry? If you feel that way, you should know that you are not defending a medical procedure. You wouldn't say that about an appendectomy. No. You are promoting an ancient religious rite called human sacrifice. That's what this is. Promoting human sacrifice. Let's stop lying about it. It's very obvious now. And speaking of death cults, Joe Biden made his case last night for the sexual mutilation of children.
It's also passed the Bipartisan Equality Act to ensure LGBTQ Americans, especially transgender young people, can live with safety and dignity.
First, you want to say, whoa, pause, Mr. President. Define every letter in the acronym and what they all mean. Of course, he couldn't. But he is pointing to an occurring reality in our country. There are hospitals in the United States, hard as it is to believe, that are right now performing mastectomies on little girls in the name of gender ideology. They're castrating children and then giving them drugs that produce sterility and osteoporosis. And they're bragging about it. Now, this has happened with adults for a long time. It's never happened at scale with children, and no one's ever bragged about it. But the Democratic Party now is, not just endorsing it, not just supporting it silently, by calling it an affirmative good. Joe Biden, the guy who showered with...
Autocracy has grown weaker, not stronger. Name me a world leader who changed places with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one.
Say a housewife? House.
But I will make no
Did they swap
apologies
housewives?
that we're investing to make America stronger. Investing in American innovation and industries that will define the future that China intends to be dominating. Investing in our alliances and working with our allies to protect advanced technologies so they will not be used against us. Modernizing our military to safeguard stability and deter aggression. Today, we're in the strongest position in decades to compete with China or anyone else in the world. Anyone else in the world. And I'm committed. I'm committed to work with China where we can advance American interests and benefit the world. But make no mistake about it. As we made clear last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did.
Look,
it's caught
look,
up.
mine.
Jill, my wife, who teaches full-time, has an expression. I hope I get it right, kid. Any nation that out-educates us is going to out-compete us. Any nation that out-educates is going to out-compete us. Folks, we all know 12 years of education is not enough to win the economic competition of the 21st century. We want to have the best educated workforce. Let's finish the job by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. Studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school and go on to earn a 2 or 4 year degree, no matter their background they came from. Let's give public school teachers a raise.
Yeah, they don't deserve it. As a former school teacher, they don't deserve it. Get out of here. Get out of here with that nonsense.
Assault weapons
No way.
now. Ban them now. Once and for all.
Infringement.
Putin's unfair and brutal war in Ukraine disrupted energy supplies as well as food supplies, blocking all that grain in Ukraine. But we're better positioned than any country on earth right now. But we have more to do. But here at home, inflation is coming down. Here at home, gas prices are down $1.50 from their peak. Food inflation is coming down, not fast enough, but coming down. Inflation has fallen every month for the last 6 months, while take-home pay has gone up. Additionally, over the last 2 years, a record 10 million Americans applied to start new businesses. 10 million. And by the way, every time in Roe v. Wade and protect Roe v. Wade. Give every woman a consular right. The Vice President and I are doing everything to protect access to reproductive health care and safeguard patient safety. But already more than a dozen states are enforcing extreme abortion bans. Make no mistake about it. If Congress passes a national ban, I will veto it. But let's also pass the Bipartisan Equality Act to ensure LGBTQ Americans, especially transgender young people, can live with safety and dignity. Our strength.
Is it over?
Some people watched that whole thing. I don't know how y'all did it.
Not very well, but I only watched the last 20 minutes of it, and it was pretty bad. John, let's throw it to you first, buddy. Out of all those things, that's from your Catholic president, Joe Biden, just professing proudly all of these unnatural things that go against the church, the order, and against God in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah, and it's funny that you'd mentioned Catholicity there. The one thing that I picked up on and just I couldn't get out of my head after I heard it was his focus on schools. I mean, besides the goofy reference to his full-time teacher wife, which even whoever that young girl beside the wife was, you could see how she found it humorous. It's like, what in the world is he talking about? You know, maybe his granddaughter or something. I don't know. I just hope he wasn't showering with her. But in any case, the focus on schools, wanted to get them in there earlier, and you can be rest assured that he's wanting to keep us in there longer in the colleges. As the Jesuits knew, give us a kid young, and until he's about 7. Sometimes they have the quote going up until he's 9, but give a child to someone young, and that child's 99 times out of 100 yours to keep. All right, barring some miracle of grace. That's just the way the human psyche works. That's the way the human person works, and that's why they hate things like homeschooling, good, solid Catholic schools, stuff like that. So I picked up on that they want to indoctrinate us a little bit earlier because it is still just too much leeway when you have a child until, let's say, they're 6 years old. I mean, it's a lot of formative time right there. You can get them early, obviously with first grade on and do a lot of damage. But, if you get them by the time they're 3, it's going to be next to impossible, again, barring miracles of grace, to get them back to sanity. And you can do so much damage in those earlier years by removing a child. Again, not to criticize anybody who has to do it because of circumstances beyond their control, but taking them away from that natural environment to be close to the mother and the father, obviously, because there's more hours a day they're not going to see dad as well. And that's a disaster for the entire population, right? Because the effects aren't just on that child and on that particular family, but to the surrounding population, because it's a child who is going to be less integrated with the community, and because they're detached from first of all, that natural layer that you have there of child to home, all right, and then child to community is just that next step up in the social structure of man is damaged already. So I picked up on maybe some of that Jesuit wisdom that he's taking in the perverse sense there in regard to schools.
Yeah, they definitely have to get him as far as they got to get their claws into him as young as possible, because if not, then they're going to end up with, traditional values and actually not becoming an absolute degenerate. Enoch, your thoughts about all of that nonsense that we just watched?
Well, thanks, brother. Thanks, Jonathan. That was very profound, very insightful. Thanks, buddy. One of the things that I found interesting was Kristen Cinema. We had such a large egg shortage. She literally became Big Bird so that she could lay some more eggs. I'm going to try and take it this route. I'm reminded of a story of a young man in the Middle East who had to face persecution because he was a Christian. He was kidnapped under the Muslim regime, and he was put in camp and was told to renounce his faith and to join I think it was the Shiites. He refused. No matter how much they tortured him, he refused. That camp was shut down. I think when ISIS ended, he was brought to the U.S. out of some visa as a refugee. He came here, and it took him maybe 1 to 2 years before he ended up renouncing his faith. And it goes to show you could be enslaved by men. You can be enslaved with persecution and torture, and you will hold on to your faith. As a matter of fact, suffering binds us to Christ more, and it gives it meaning, so we don't renounce our Lord. But when you come here and you become enslaved to yourself through materialism, the lifestyle of the U.S., which to me was gotten to nowadays, and this started years ago. It's not something new. It really makes you slave to your passions, and what the Muslims couldn't do, even with persecution and threatening his life, this country was able to do within 1 year of enslaving him to himself. And this is the problem that we have. All these things that he's talking about, all these things that he's talked about throughout his speech, everything is this is the whole part of democracy. It's let's give you some more candy so that you can continue to feed your passion, so you can continue to vote for us. And this is the problem that I have with democracies, that everybody gets to vote. And when everybody gets to vote, it's very easy to manipulate those votes. So, so he was talking about all these rights. And my issue here is, where are the bishops? Where are the bishops? Because every right that he's talking about, the rights to murder a child, and the right of what he said, trans children, which makes no sense, because there's no such thing. It's only somebody who imagines them to be something else that they're not, and then they want the government to pay for their surgery. See, this is my big issue. It has always been said that the church followed the world up until after Vatican II. Now the world followed the church up until Vatican II. Now the church follows the world. I don't think that's the case. I think we're still having the world is only following the The world is only reacting to where the church has gone. The world is following the churches still. This is how far down the church has gone, and so far as not passing on the faith, the deposit of faith and the true tradition. In order to get families, education should be within the families. Work should be within the subsidiarity of local communities. We talked about this. Virtue should be done at home. And like Jonathan said, when they want your children earlier and longer hours, longer years, it's because they want more time to turn them into slaves to the state. So he lied throughout his whole speech. The deficit is not going down. We're in the highest deficit. This is immoral to our future children, what we're doing. Wait till the bubble pops. We're talking about the balloon that they shot. Wait till the inflation bubble pops, and we're going to have our children living in the streets because of a Great Depression. That's probably the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is civil war, because you think things are bad right now with the eggs shortages. Wait until you see what happens later on. And these people, they want to continue to spend because he wants his legacy. He wants to be, the social justice president that changed things. That's how he wants history to view him. And of course, he's working to further the WEF and the World Economic Forum and world dominance. So the U.S. has to fall in order for that to happen. So I didn't watch it. I don't want to watch it anymore. It's all theater at this point. The bad guys are in control, and as of right, honestly, nothing's going to happen until our Lord spanks us, and we need prayer. That's all.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Of course, a lot of people are looking to their politicians as their deity at this point because they have no structure, no faith-based background. And so, Steve, I don't know how much of that you watched, and it just is the natural endpoint for a democracy is just a bumbling old man talking about all these things that go against the natural order or any sense of decency.
I thought the New York Times surprisingly had a good post about this. State of the Union speeches are usually pretty scattershot, but Biden's 2023 version set a new record. He ranged across the world issues without substantially addressing the biggest ones: crime, border crisis, China, nationals looming economic woes, as was brought up, because his record is so weak on all of them. Instead, he offered a lie of shameless bid to fool the electorate ahead of his 2024 run for a re-election. And he basically go in and then dismantle everything that he spoke about. Because, yeah, it was. Beck, of all people, shockingly enough, Beck came out talking about what you saw. I think it was this quote. You saw the high priest of the new religion coming out did he call it an altar? At the podium, at least, to talk about basically the state of religion. I just lied to you through your face about, Big Brother doing this, because most of everything that he spoke of, he can't do. Even like that whole veto thing, veto the abortion thing. First off, the whole Graham thing, bringing it back in the federal thing. We've gone over this before, but the veto power is his so that he can veto things that are that are unconstitutional. Just don't veto. I don't like this, veto. I don't like that, veto. That's not how it works. I mean, you just can't do things whatever you want up there. And we have an elected monarch. You saw that the other day. For anybody that says we don't, that's pretty much, you might be in denial. And that's not just a river up in Egypt or down in Egypt, or over in Egypt, wherever. And it's a sad thing. I mean, the original State of the Union, Jefferson wrote it on a piece of paper and sent it to Congress. It wasn't this whole pageantry. That's what hey, welcome everybody, the President of the United States.
Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was the first president to make it into essentially a kingly speech.
And he was one of the worst. And everyone decided to do it after that. I mean, FDR wanted to be a dictator, is his own words. These guys, there's nothing about me. Look what I've done. Put your peacock feathers out and see what it is. No, these guys are terrible at it. If you want humility, you put the letter out, you send it there, and you have them read it, and it doesn't go on TV. I always like pointing out, notice the words. It's State of the Union. It's not State of the Country. It's State of the Union. And guess what happens after this? Every state has a State of the State. South Carolina has a state of a state address. North Carolina has a state of a state address. Minnesota has a state of a state address. State is synonymous with country. So it's not state of the country, it's state of the union. So, and here's Michael Malice.
I'm delighted as a Texan that it is now the official policy of the Texas Republican Party to have a referendum on Texas secession. And I think that is something that is actually going to happen sooner rather than later.
Are you pro-Texit? Of course
I am beyond pro-Texit.
Or do you worry about partition in India was not peaceful, or the breakup of Yugoslavia was not totally peaceful?
We spent 2 years everyone in this country was imprisoned in their home. We are not living in peaceful times. We're just living in docile times. Well, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, your government is at war. We're at World War III, government versus you. And if you want to say we're 2024, we're going to vote harder if everything's going to be fixed, pass the hookah pipe, because I would love whatever you're popping in there. And then another thing that we don't have the clip of is Biden going after GOPers for talking about getting Medicare and Social Security, which we talked about this, I think, was it last week that we talked for Waz and Rick, that we mentioned that? Or was it the week prior? That's a good thing. Get rid. It's socialist stuff. Oh, yeah. Stossel had an interview with Pompeo, of all people. And Pompeo's talking, yeah, it's broken. We got to get rid of it. We got to fix this. We got to change it somehow. It's broken. It's all we've been lying to everybody. We need to get rid of it. He even talked about getting rid of the Department of Education. I'm going, holy cow. Stossel was even saying that. He goes, I've never heard anybody speak like that. That's what we should be getting. Smaller government, getting out instead of what can I do? And most politicians vote for me. I will do this. No, I want you to just go play golf. I want you to go to the beach. I want you to get out. When Trump was playing golf all the time, Obama was saying, it was like, yes, good. Get out. Just don't do anything. So if you do anything, usually people screw it up. But here's Biden, was it today?
I know that a lot of Republicans,
who knows,
the dream is to cut Social Security and Medicare. Well, let me say this. If that's your dream, I'm your nightmare.
Here's him before.
When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid. I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government. And I not only tried it once, I tried it twice, I tried it a third time, and I tried it a fourth time.
Now I would take that Joey. Where's that Joey? Give me that Joey in there. Now, this Joey we have currently, he's a puppet, and he's not in charge. Someone else is telling him what to do and all this. This guy's flip-flops more than anything. He changes more than a weather balloon. And for what I was brought up about the China thing. Yeah, China owns us because of our debt. That debt clock, I can't, I don't know about y'all, I can't put the debt clock website on the computer because it'll crash. The darn thing just goes all the time. It's almost rapid fire. How many trillions we're in right now? And they're just raising it up. And that whole tax thing, we got to have people 400,000, they should be like this, that, and the other. What about that whole Venmo thing? Yeah, if you buy $600 plus, you have to report that to the IRS. So don't give me that stuff about no one's going to pay any more higher taxes. You can't sell a sofa right now without that happening. Right? They're charging you talk about tax enough already, the Tea Party's on. Where's the Tea Parties today? Yeah, we're getting more. 10, 15 years ago was nothing compared to what's happening right now. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Gas has gone up since the elections. No one's talked about that. I think Rick mentioned that a couple weeks ago. It was $2.80 or $2.70 during the election times. So yeah, man, it's all this world's a stage, just like the Grammys. We can't play the video of the Grammys because it's so bad. But the whole world's a stage. You're just, as Carlin said, it's a one-party thing, and you're not invited.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. Without the pomp and circumstance of the State of the Union, then you don't have this obsession that people seem to have with electing your king. That's what everybody is. And they use stuff like the State of the Union, and they use stuff like Air Force One and all that kind to continue that myth and keep everybody in that mindset that makes people like Michael Malice seem crazy. I mean, I'm Texit 100%. I'd love to get out of this union and know Anthony. Unlike New Yorkers, you guys would get taken over by Canada in 20 minutes if you did anything. Texans would actually be able to, because we'd get rid of Austin. We'd actually lift it up and kick it out of the state. And then that would pretty much take care of all of our issues. So that's all said. Well done by everybody. Let's address it real quickly because Steve brought it up. We can't talk about it or we can't show the video, but we can at least mention it. The Grammys pulled a publicity stunt on Sunday where they had a fatalist, a gentleman who has unnatural tendencies dress up in a satanic outfit and dance around with fire in the background. It was the talk of puritanical Twitter and conservative media for a couple days. But here's the issue. All it was a publicity stunt. And if you don't think, let me stumble around and say this and I'll throw it to Jonathan. Because Jonathan, I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about with the Grammys. Did you see the clip or anything like that? You at least heard about it, probably. Yeah. The fact of the matter is, if this is the moment where you're like, oh my goodness, they're very satanic. Yeah, you're missing the boat because they've been doing this forever. So just a quick reaction. And we won't take too long on it, but we'll go a little kind of rapid fire between John, Fawaz, and then Steve.
Yeah, the one thing on which I heard it, I can't remember what the platform was even now. It didn't come to me, but said that it was meant. It was one of the alternative news guys I listen to every once in a while, but it said that it was meant as a way to kind of aggravate conservative Christian folks, and I guess anyone with any sense of decency and a brain. And so I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's another smokescreen because, I mean, look, the diabolic is so deeply entrenched there that some sort of flamboyant thing on the Grammys. I'm more surprised that there isn't more stuff like that and that it's not more publicized, because anyone with half a brain knows that is the essence of the modern day music industry, film. I mean, the people who were there, I would say at least 99.9% of them, if not all of them, eat that stuff up. And I don't mean to include the pun too literally, but I mean, they're just, that is who they are. So the only thing really that kind of gets my wheels turning is wondering, why is this another smokescreen? I mean, because surely there's got to be way more important things on our agenda than worrying about whether or not Satanists are displaying their satanic tendencies on a TV screen. I mean, it's kind of like, almost too easy. But I'm interested in hearing in your further thoughts, because maybe I'm missing something too.
No, and don't call me Shirley.
Yeah, Fawaz, what do you got?
Not much. In all reality, you had, I think Anthony and Rob brought this up during their avoided.
Who are they?
Do not mention their names.
Sometimes, some folk can say something profound, like a broken clock can be, correct twice a day. With those guys, they talked about how you had this embodiment of evil all wrapped up at once, which is pretty much the culture in a sense what we have right now. You had a gay artist, Sam Smith. You had a transgender, a man who thinks he's a woman artist, and I don't know what the P. Pierce. I forgot the name of the person who's in the song called "Unholy." It was sponsored by who. At the Grammys, and it was almost as a satanic ritual that they're doing, which goes to show you what they're really saying is like, this is our new religion. It's Luciferian. It is satanic. And then you got Joy Reid talking about how this was an absolute. What did she say? She said, "This is proof that the progressives are winning, and we've already won because 12 million, one of the lowest viewed Grammys, watched the satanic ritual happen," according to her. So what you're really admitting that your movement is satanic, and so you've won. Now here's the thing: the Christian artists, those who call themselves Christian artists, you best believe if Enoch ever got invited to the Grammys, number one, I wouldn't go. Number two, if that happened, I'm making a scene. I'm walking out. And the Christian artists who were there, and there were a few of them, should have gotten up and walked out. No, but they're cowards because they don't want to be betrayed as, by the media. You're going to be hated whether you like it or not. At least do something that is heroic. So that's all I got to say about that. The enemy is going to have zeal. We're not, but at the end, this is why God's going to win the battle for us because we're cowards.
Amen to that. Steve, what do you got?
If it weren't for social media, I wouldn't even known that it went on.
That's what it was all. That's the only reason it was done, is
Yeah.
so it could go viral on social media because nobody watches it now that we don't have 3 channels anymore, and anybody can like do anything else or watch amazing shows like News from the Pew or do anything. They don't have to watch this stuff, so they have to get more bombastic with these types of displays.
I guess the only thing I'd add to the other guys is, like I said, the only time I heard about it was on social media. Is maybe our mindset. We don't have to be first to show the news. I mean, we don't have to be everyone's got a camera phone, so now everyone thinks they're a reporter. So now we got the late breaking news coming out. Hey, check this out. Look how outraged we got to be. Okay, yeah, it's terrible. It's outrageous. All this. We should be upset. We should do reparations, things like that. But if you don't know if it even exists, one of you guys, I think Jonathan said they just kind of wanted to poke the bear a little bit. Then why don't you just let it die off in a couple of days? Don't even share it. Don't even look at it, and they lose their power. You give them the power by pointing the light on them. I mean, sure, should we? Everyone knows that Hollywood is full of child molesting weirdos and things like that. Epstein, for example. Corbett did a bring back interview from 10 years ago when the guy brings up one of the Masonic temples out there has literally like they call it like a transporter or something like this. I don't know how legit this is, but I mean, these guys maybe some of them are the opposite of what we're doing. They're trying maybe to summon some demons. We're not, but don't give them the time of day. And then on top of that, we don't need to keep talking about, not that we're trying to keep talking about, but we don't on social media. Got to keep talking about, hey, look at Madonna. Look how bad this is, this pose and all this. Look at this. We know. It's one person said, we know the sewer. I know the sewer is terrible. I don't need to go down and smell it to know. It's just.
Yeah. That's pretty much it in that regard. So that's it. We're not going to go that much we're not going to do any much about that. I know you got another clip you want to play before we move on to our next topic, Steve. So,
the act of war clip.
Yeah.
War in Ukraine even began. Both Tory and Nuland at the State Department, the number 2 of the State Department, and Joe Biden threatened to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. Watch.
I want to be clear with you today. If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
If Russia invades, that means tanks.
Okay.
The computer must have.
Yeah. They took it out like Nord Stream 2.
In the sense of this, what happened was, what was it at? We ended up finding out the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up by us. A bombshell report claims Navy divers carried out mission to kill Russia's gas stranglehold on Europe, an audacious mission overseen by president. So any other time that's an act of war, U.S. Navy divers planted C4 explosives that caused $500 million damage to Nord Stream pipelines between Russia and Germany. Report by Pulitzer Prize winner details plots. White House and CIA have denied claims the attack was carried out, whatever. But they basically said it beforehand.
Tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again, then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will. I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
So then the pipelines actually blew up. These are the pipelines that bring natural gas from Eastern Europe to Western Europe to keep the European economy going. And they exploded, causing the single largest human-caused environmental disaster in all of history. and again setting Europe on the road to actual poverty. So it was an unpopular event, and Joe Biden denied any responsibility. In fact, he blamed Russia. Joe Biden and his whole administration told us that somehow Russia, for reasons they never made clear, just because they're evil, had sabotaged their own energy pipeline. Watch this.
It was a deliberate act of sabotage, and now the Russians are pumping out disinformation and lies.
So that was in September, and it was obvious from the very first day, well, that's not true. It's not that Vladimir Putin is too good a person to blow up Nord Stream, but like, why would he? It only hurts him. And by the way, it really hurts Western Europe. But a lot of media outlets repeated that lie dutifully. That's what they do, and attacked us as Putin stooges for having questions about it. Well, we know a lot more now. There have been a number of official investigations of what happened, and not one has found any evidence of Russian involvement. And now we have the actual answer to what happened. Oh, the Biden administration did it. For real. Investigative reporter Seymour Hersh, who's been around for more than 50 years, just wrote a piece on Substack that includes this, quote, last June, the Navy divers, U.S. Navy divers, operating under the cover of a widely publicized midsummer NATO exercise known as Baltops 22, planted remotely triggered explosives that 3 months later destroyed 3 of the 4 Nord Stream pipelines, according to a source with direct knowledge of the operational planning. Now, this piece continues. It's probably the most comprehensive news story you will read this year. Seymour Hersh on Substack, you should read it. And it recounts in detail meetings with the National Security Advisor at the White House, where this was planned, exactly what explosives were used, how they were triggered, by what aircraft, on what day. So many details in here that it is not possible that it's not true. It is true. And in fact, no one in the high level of the U.S. government is denying it with any specificity, and said the White House is just dismissing it as utterly false, and no reporters are following up.
Shift, and it's not a gradual shift, it's a dramatic shift in the mainstream media's approach to this. No longer are they talking about pie in the sky stuff. People are talking about how difficult the situation is, and people are starting to say that this thing could be over by August. So there's a growing recognition that Ukraine's not on the right side of history right now. While they may not come straight out and say Ukraine's going to lose, there's a recognition that the Russians are getting ready to do something big, and there really isn't a solution to it. And I think Biden's being briefed on that. Look, there was a time back in September when I think we actually believed that the Ukrainian military could beat the Russians because it looked good. Man, they took over Kharkov, they took over the right bank, it looked good. But anybody who knew it went, that's a lot of flash, no substance. But nothing's going to look good for Ukraine again. They're never going to be able to repeat that. And I think there might be some people saying, if we can just do this, just do that, Ukraine might be able to stymie or have limited success. But even Miley and everybody else is saying they're not going to be able to retake any meaningful territory this year. The best they can hope for is, a stalemate. And I tell you, Russia doesn't play the stalemate game. That's not going to happen. This is going to be the offense like we haven't seen since World War II, and it's going to be devastating for the Ukrainians, and it's going to be the most tragic thing from a humanitarian standpoint.
Yeah, it's pretty true. This whole thing that's going on with the Ukraine and all that stuff, we all knew it was coming. Everybody on this panel knew that this was just a money laundering operation, and it's nice to see everybody else finally catching up to that. I don't know if anybody has any final thoughts on the videos we just watched before we get to our final topic of the day. Nope, because nobody cares. Obviously, fantastic. That really is just kind of the feeling overall. Is we're all kind of tired of this and the charade of Mitch McConnell wearing a yellow and blue tie to the State of the Union and all this other nonsense. Just give it up already. Make Ukraine the 51st state and let's just call it a day.
Give them an NFL team.
Yeah, give them an NFL team and all that stuff. It'd be fantastic. But let's get to the story everybody really wants.
We need 52nd because Israel's 51st.
Semantics. So let's get to the let's get to the final story. The story everybody's looking to talk about today. There were 2 stories, one that was dropped yesterday, and then one dropped subsequently this afternoon. This was the one from this afternoon that the FBI rescinds a memo citing the Southern Poverty Law Center after a Daily Signal report that listed a bunch of RTC, radical traditional Catholics, as a danger and needed to be put on the list. And among those groups were the Slaves to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I believe Catholic Family News, a bunch of really good Catholic groups that were cited, and you can read the report from this FBI whistleblower talking about all kinds of whacked out things that the FBI was looking at in regards to the RTCs, these radical traditional Catholics. Now, they tried to distance themselves in the initial report by saying, we're not talking about the people that just go to the Latin Mass. We're talking about those who go online and express right-wing white supremacy views. And yeah, we all know that's just a front because and you know what? I made fun of it before. The guys at Avoiding Babylon and Enoch actually talked about this like 2 weeks ago. How about the FBI getting into different groups, which means they've been there for a while. But John, did you hear about the infiltration of the FBI? And it's kind of strange that there are certain groups that claim to be militant in the church that are not on this list, but that were certain groups that were named and groups that were not named. What were your thoughts on this whole report?
Well, just the ones that were showing there on the screen. Even if I would, oh, thank you. So, I mean, I know a fair number of people from all I don't know many people so far as I can recall from Christ or Chaos, or In the Spirit of Short. I'm not familiar with them, but others have some familiarity with. And whatever else we might have disagreements about, I can tell you that the ones I know from those other groups are all very devoted to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And I mean, just almost everything I can think of that's wrong with our culture and things that are problems in the church as well. A greater devotion and imitation, devotion to and imitation of the Blessed Virgin Mary would fix these problems. So, I mean, besides the fact that obviously these groups, all of them on there are, questioning the narrative that we're given, especially things like, besides just what you might normally think of. I think at least half of those groups talk about the danger that evolution as swallowing that whole the way the public schools would have us do is such an issue. So that's just one thing that comes to mind. They're not simply traditional Catholic groups; they're also ones that make you think about kind of the scientific paradigm that we've been, I guess you'd say, raised in. But yeah, we are dangerous, as you well said. So yeah, that's just one thing that makes me think of is that they're questioning the paradigms that we've been handed from such an early age, and they would suggest as one of the remedies devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. So that is dangerous for the folks in charge, but not just the FBI, but those that are looking to get us in all kinds of trouble, both spiritual, financial, and otherwise.
I'm mute. It is interesting as I take myself off mute. The groups that are being targeted at a time where the Latin Mass is under assault. There's the rumors that's what's coming in October, the great reckoning that will take place. And I mean, the slaves to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, Brother Andre Marie, and all those guys, they're such great people. And I mean, I can say this because I'm sure they've tracked me there because I drove there twice. And they can, I've been there. I spoke at their conference last year, so there you couldn't meet a nicer group of men and the women that are a part of that organization. They're such great people. Check them out at catholicism.org. But Enoch, my man Fawaz, you were ahead of the curve on this one with the AB guys. Your thoughts on this actually coming to light?
Yeah, no, I didn't have much to do with it, to be honest with you. Kudos to those guys for having the insight and just being profound and understanding of what's going on. And they called it. So for Anthony and Rob, we have to bow our heads when we say their name, of course. But yeah, here's my thing. It's like a double. It's a double thing. Number one, of course, we're the enemy. It's obvious. I mean, anytime you want to impose a new philosophy or a new religion, or which we have right now, because it's called the unnatural religion, Satanism on this earth, The only religion that is in direct opposition to anything that Satan wants to do, it ain't the Protestants. It's not the Eastern Orthodox. It's not the Sedevacantists, that's for sure. Okay, it is the traditional Catholic Church in all of its entirety, the deposit of faith handed down to anybody who can accept it, because it literally becomes the foundation. It literally becomes the foundation of society because it produces holy families. That's what it does. It produces holy families, holy parishes, holy priests, a holy society. And of course, we are the enemy. It's because that's where the opposition is. Now, anybody on that list, or anybody gets added on that list, that should be your source of news, and that should be your source of listening to from now on, to be honest with you, because, again, the enemy of my enemy is now my friend. So anybody who we were looking at, wondering whether there were, in opposition to the faith, you look at that list, and hopefully the list grows. I can think of some people I could put on there. And then those are the guys that you know for a fact are passing on the faith in a way where it's a threat to the enemy, which is the state. So that's all I gotta say. Really is we knew this was coming. There's attacks on the traditional faith from every side. You have your own personal attacks at home. We have our own flesh and our own concupiscence. We have demons who are tempting us outside of that. You have attacks from the city, from the state, from the church itself, from the hierarchy, unfortunately. And the one thing that really could unite everybody, which is one liturgy, that can unite us all, is being attacked. So they're taking away our right of defense in the spiritual realm. But ultimately, you have to learn to suffer well, and Lent is coming in order for us to pass through this, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Put on your seatbelt. If you can make it through the other end, we can rebuild. But right now, it's time to suffer. It's time to carry our cross with Christ.
Amen to that. Steve, your thoughts? And were you disappointed that Sensus Fidelium was not put on that list?
I thought I had DMJ on. I probably would be, because
you are the granddaddy of Catholic YouTube. So,
well, but I don't meet their qualifications. I mean, I don't go back to what Jonathan was saying. I don't remember ever hearing Michael Matt or brother Andre, anybody of those guys, except for EMJ, that talked about the Jews. I mean, that whole thing right there that one website I pulled up from their website is preach anti-Semitic hatred. I don't know any of them besides, not saying that EMJ does, but he's the only one that talks about it. It just goes back to this. It's a worthless organization. Here's a USA Today opinion piece from 2019. The SPLC is a hate-based scam that nearly caused me to be murdered. Daily Wire. I usually don't let friends listen to the Daily Wire or read the Daily Wire. But here's 7 things you need to know about the SPLC. And, just a few things like that is, 1 and 2, you know these. But 6, the FBI, who we're talking about, removed the SPLC as a resource in 2014 for their hate crime webpage. So they removed it during Comey's time, but now they're listening to it again? Or how does that happen? And number 7 is the best one. It's the phrase that pays. The actual hate group is the SPLC. So it's a worthless group. This post even brings up was that they're not interested in classifying leftist organizations as hate groups. They overestimate it. What is the number? I think it's number 2. Yeah, vastly overestimates the number of hate groups. So it's a worthless group that should be dismantled itself. And why the FBI doesn't go to them? That's the question I'd like to have. I think my cousin is with the CIA or FBI, one of the two. I got to find out what Big Lenny's doing now these days, and say, hey man, what's up, dude? But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. Now we're using it. We're going to be talking about that for the next couple of weeks on social media. And again, back kind of like with the Grammys. Let's let it, whatever. Yeah. Those guys come in. It shouldn't be a thought to you. It's, You know, if I were at mass, and they come in and take us away. What the guys back in the past, what they do, like the English, you know, there's in the English mementos, English martyrs, confessors for every day of the year. There's a painting of them busting through the door to take away the priests and things like that. So, yeah, I don't give the SPLC much time. I mean, I knew about that list years ago. I just didn't know the FBI was coming about it, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing it going, is that what they're talking about a couple years ago? But no, I guess it's kind of new and just weird. Just weird times we're living in.
The whole thing is, it was leaked. It's very you said it. The list has been around. You know, the brothers, the Slaves of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, have been going back and forth with the Southern Poverty Law Center for years, and you know, that's why they have their whole issues that they have up in their diocese. But people who are bringing attention to it, and I'm not throwing shade at anybody, you're just doing it for clicks, because what this whole thing is and there are some who are bringing light to it and deeper and explaining it in a deeper way, and that's fine. That's great. You can explore it. I'm not saying you can't. There are much smarter people than I am that are exploring it.
Yeah, as a
my only point here is, what are you going to get out of exploring it?
As an FBI whistleblower that was the first to come up with this, outside the Avoiding Babylon whistleblowers, I guess they would be the whistleblowers of it. An former FBI agent, he came out saying it. And then he also talked about how there's other guys that are like calling out the Biden administration. No, it was not her, but not him, but the lady that interviewed him. She used to be with one of the big shot, maybe it was Fox, maybe. And she also mentioned that some reporter is getting pretty much not blackmailed, but they think the government uploaded kiddie porn onto his computer. Second time I've heard a story like that in the last year of a reporter. The first was Sheila Atkinson, and they caught it, they said, of FBI guys uploading on her husband's laptop, and she stated that in front of Congress critters, if you want to call them, 8 months ago now. So there's a lot of, it goes back to, hey, divorce from DC, you eliminate Biden, you eliminate Kamala, you get rid of the FBI, you have an immediate pay raise because you get rid of the Fed, you eliminate the amendment about the income tax. There's a lot of positives, and these are one of them, because remember, they called you a domestic terrorist long ago.
The point I was trying to get at, and it gave me a second while Steve was saying to really formulate it, is listen to, you know, there's some great guys out there who are doing some deep dives on it, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. I think what Fawaz said and what John said and what Steve said is the right perspective. It, you know, there's going to be persecution that's coming one way or another. The people that have been put on that list are people who are pushing back against narratives, and I wouldn't soak in it for too long. As Steve said, that's the final point. Understand it. If it happens, it is another cross that we are blessed to bear. And that's really it. And I think, you know, the people that are going to, there will be people that will investigate it and move on. There will be people that will blow it out of proportion. Just be careful with the people who are doing it, because in the end, anxiety and worry is actually sins against the faith, because then you're calling into question God's mercy, God's power, God's omnipotence, and everything that goes against it. So that's the last thing I would say about that. So let's move on, because it is time for the Cry Room, our Saint of the Week and the Cry Room. So John, you are up first, buddy. Do you have a Saint of the Week and a Cry Room?
Yeah, my Saint of the Week is, I'll go with this. The guy, I heard this interview done by Tucker Carlson of the former owner of Carl's Jr., who's a devout Catholic, daily mass goer and stuff.
Never against that.
What? The guy who owns Carl's Jr. is a Catholic?
Yeah, I mean, I just heard this.
Have you seen his commercials?
Well, so I heard about. Then I also found out about these very risque commercials. But he's done some work in the pro-life movement, I guess, that showed some courage and saved some babies. So, but the reason I bring it up is he mentioned finding another guy in the middle of in mass that was looking to do some good things for those who were considering abortion. So, it got me thinking about all the mudslinging going on in not just the conservative world, like with that whole who's the guy that outed his the guy who was going to sign him on a contract of millions of dollars, and you guys know who I'm talking about. It was the conservative big Daily Wire folks about 2 or 3 weeks ago. You know what I mean?
Oh, Stephen Crowder and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So and everybody's like picking sides and all this goofiness, and anyway, it got me thinking to today's Saint Cyril of Alexandria. As I was listening to this interview today, don't ask me how my brain took to that, but Saint Cyril calls out the heresy of Nestorius. Just think about Saint Athanasius calling out the heresy of Arius and others. But Saint Athanasius, devoted to our Lord's divinity, Saint Cyril of Alexandria, devoted to our Lady's divine maternity. They did what they did. You could say, were into slinging mud at the true heretics because the church had already. They were going with the church. All right, they were following Holy Mother Church in doing that, and that's what. Do I even dare say it? But I would put in the cry room, maybe let's say some unnamed traditional Catholic authors of great repute who are continuing week after week to suggest that the most prudent path forward is disobedience because it's the greater obedience. Now, I'm sorry, but when you start using and these are the same, these are traditional folks who like to drop literary references in their works. When you start doing these 1984 references all throughout your own work, and then you start employing it in trying to call disobedience obedience, I'm sorry, you've gone a step too far. I don't care if you are a doctor. I don't care if you are a great expositor of all things traditional at times. That's the most untraditional thing there is, to abuse language like that, as Joseph Pieper would say, or just as any good Catholic would say. You can't abuse language. So I would put in the cry room, let's say certain unnamed traditional Catholics. There's no sense in slinging mud back at that direction right now, who are calling disobedience obedience, because you can't be a Saint Cyril of Alexandria unless you are following Holy Mother Church. And she may be bruised right now, but you're not going to do good for people's salvation by encouraging them to fight Holy Mother Church. Fight the bad people in the church is one thing, but we are the laity. We are not the Pope. We are not bishops or archbishops, and even bishops who are not actually the bishops of a particular see, that is, don't have the power of the Episcopus Loci or get to make the decisions. Let's say in a place like Kazakhstan, you're in positions of submission to other authorities, and it's not fun sometimes. But you know what? I personally would not want to be on the receiving side of all that authority right now, given the difficulties that would be involved in trying to manage the situation. So just got to recognize our place. Anyway, long-winded answer to the sorry about that for my cry room and Saint of the Week.
No worries. Fwaz, who you got?
For my cry room, it's Justin Welby, obviously, the Archbishop of Canterbury, whom I think today's news broke out that their synod has now enabled what they call same-sex couples unions. So yeah, that's gender neutral, God, to be considered by Church of England, and there's the blessing of unions of non-marriage marriages. So I got, in fact, I think he wept when it happened. Goes to show you where his priorities are at. Church of England is long gone. It was long gone when it first started. So that's my cry room. My saint of the week, I'm going to put Bishop Strickland on there, because we do ask the bishops to speak out on certain things, and a lot of them don't. But at least we have one, even if it is on Twitter, or he's not afraid to say what he needs to say for the church, and I appreciate that about him. So I put Bishop Strickland. If you don't mind, I'd like just to read something very quickly, just to get. And people have heard this before, but I want to quote in holy memory Pope Benedict XIV. Lent is coming. That the observance of Lent is the very badge of Christian warfare. By it we prove ourselves to be the enemies of Christ. By it we avert the scourges of divine justice. By it we gain strength against the princes of darkness. For it shields us with heavenly help. Should men grow remiss of their observation of Lent, it will be determined to God's glory, to a disgrace to the Catholic religion, and a danger to Christian souls. Neither can it be doubted that such negligence would become the source of misery to the world, of public calamity, and of private woe. So it's a great quote. Said a lot of times during Lent. Pope Benedict XIV, holy memory, just to remind us of how important Lent is, especially when it comes to fighting the spiritual warfare. This is our Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Great. So, Steve, what do you got?
First, I thought about putting Enoch in for not rapping that. Not just kidding.
Don't worry, Enoch. I would have slapped that down. As the host, I ain't taking that nonsense. Although I may put you in the crime for knocking DMX out, but that's so it balances out.
I remember that.
Yeah. Saint of the week, I'll go with the lady that remember we talked about that one lady from United Kingdom that got arrested for praying outside the abortion clinic, and they just arrested her for she didn't even speak. Just arrested her for being there. She got let off, released last week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So I guess she's right back at it again. She's not really going to stop. Good on her. Maybe others will, help out with her as well. The cry room. I'll go with, there was a certain interview given a couple weeks ago that has made some people just utterly lose their minds. There's a lot of anger out there because of it. Not because of it, because of them. They I don't know if they just, the only time I've seen anybody rebuttal it or try to rebut it has been ad hominem attacks, fallacies beyond fallacies. People are so attached to this, I guess, just one group that it literally you can't say anything besides. I get it all the time. If I don't kiss the ring, people get on me. I had a guy before said he would never support me because I don't go to a parish or go to their chapel, whatever. It boggles the mind. I mean, the attacks that I've seen and people going after priests for putting in their bulletin and telling their flock who they are charged to protect and guide. And they get upset. People are like almost doxing them online. You're talking about doxing. People get upset about people doxing them. It's almost like a priest hunter mentality. I know somebody very close to me they did a 3-hour lecture and somebody took a 1-line comment out of context and sent it to somebody else who put it on Twitter. That's a priest hunter mode. That's a priest hunter mentality right there. That's what they did to the Irish. We're going to turn those priests in. Talk about the cry room. They should be permanently banned in the cry room for stuff like that. Probably smacked upside the head too. But stuff like that is not cool. Priests are charged to take care of the flock. Laymen aren't. So if a priest does something you don't like to their parish and the privacy of their parish, and you put it up for the public and try to get public people mad at them, you talk about Bush League. That's lower than low. So that'd be my cry room on there.
So it looks like this week has been a very anonymous cry room.
That's a group mentality on that one. There's no one person.
Nobody knows who's in the cry room, so it'll be interesting when they all get in there.
They're expanding the cry room.
That's right. It'll be the entire narthex by the time we're done with it.
Anthony will be at the door.
He's the bouncer for that.
He's he's catering.
All right. I don't have to have a cry room or a saint because there were 3 of you today, so I'm just gonna take us on out. Thanks for hanging out with us here on News from the Pew. Please like, subscribe, and share the News from the Pew. We'll talk to you all next week. God bless and Viva Cristo Rey.